Hey everybody, this is Swift from Major League Hacking. We're about to get started here in 1 second. You're tuning in right now for fundraising for high school hackathons. Jared Zoneraich is going to be presenting it. And without further ado, I will pass it off to Jared. Jared, can you say hi?
Hey everyone. So my name is Jared Zoneraich. I'll be talking about fundraising for high school hackathons. So let's get started. So I'm Jared Z. You can find me at I'm Jared Z on most platforms, Twitter, whatever. Just a little about myself before we get started. I went to my first hackathon a few years ago. I'm a freshman in high school, and it was a TechCrunch hackathon. I didn't really know much, just joined a group of people who knew a lot from Rutgers, and since then I've been pretty much hooked on hackathons, you could say, and I've just been going to tons of hackathons since then. And yeah, so a few hackathons later at my second Penn Apps, I met someone who probably a lot of you know, named Avi. And we started a Facebook group called HS Hackers, High School Hackers. At the time, it was mostly just a group for us to communicate and organize a meetup with all the other high school hackers at Penn Apps that time. But since then, it's grown from 10, 15 members to over 5,000 members, and just showing how large the high school hackathon community is, which is super awesome. And after that, I started Hack BCA at my high school. I started it junior year, so 2 years ago. And that was it was one of the first high school hackathons. And the first time we ran it, we had about 400 high school hackers attend, and we ran it again last March. So it's been running for 2 years so far. The second time we had about 500 students, and it's still going. I'm not running it anymore, but it's been awesome running it, and hopefully it'll help sprout up more high school hackathons. So let's get. Oh, one more thing. I also interned at MLH this summer, and I mostly worked on some guides to explain the magic of hackathons to school administrators and parents alike. So if you're ever having any trouble explaining hackathons, maybe trying to convince your administration to let you run a hackathon or something, definitely check these out. You can see them at mlh.io/guides. Okay, so let's move on. So before we get started with the talk, there's just a few prereqs that you should definitely check out. First, I definitely recommend checking out guide.mlh.io. This is a written just guide to organizing hackathons. It should answer tons of questions and give you a lot of context on this talk and hackathons in general. So definitely give that a look. Also, one thing I'd highly recommend you watch before watching this talk is Swift's talk on raising sponsorship. You can find this, just Google for it, and it's super helpful, and a lot of stuff I won't cover here, just general sponsorship stuff. This is a talk more focused on raising sponsorship for high school hackathons in particular. So so let's get started. So I separated this talk into 5 different parts. We'll first talk about why high school hackathons are awesome and why we're even talking about them. We'll move on to talking about what type of companies sponsor these hackathons. And after that, we'll talk about why companies sponsor hackathons. What do they get out of it? And then fourth, one of the most important parts, we'll talk about the pitch, what you should actually say to these companies. And we'll move on to talking about, lastly, how to actually secure these sponsors and what process you should go through. So let's talk about why high school hackathons are awesome. Yeah. So I know why they're awesome. They open up potential career paths for students. They are the future of high school education. High school computer science education is pretty lacking in many places, and they're a good solution to this. They inspire students to follow their dreams and actually make their dreams true. And they can help fix diversity problems at a young age. I'm sure you know all the reasons high school hackathons are awesome. I know you know that. But the one thing is, they don't know that. There's many sponsors out there who just don't know what a high school hackathon is, just because they're not as popular as college hackathons, and they're not as popular as other high school events, science fairs or what have you. But this is good. So I think one thing here is there's a lot of companies, and maybe they'd like these hackathons, but they just haven't been introduced to them. So this is going to change, I think. So they don't know yet. the collegiate hackathon scene looked like this a year or two ago, even a year ago. There was less companies, and there were still tons of companies who didn't know what a hackathon was that now do. And there'll be tons of companies in a few years who know what hackathons are and didn't used to. As more companies sponsor hackathons, more and more companies will learn about hackathons. As more hackathons are started, more companies will learn, and soon more and more companies will learn why hackathons are awesome and why they're missing out on them. So don't fear that most companies don't know what they are yet. So let's move on to the next part of this talk. Now that we know why high school hackathons are important, let's talk about what type of companies sponsor these hackathons. What are the main types of companies? So I guess just like different strokes for different folks. Each type of company wants something different out of the hackathon. And there's not one goal that each company is looking to get out of the hackathon. You really have to tailor the experience to different types of companies. So let's separate it. Let's talk about college hackathons first. There's 3 different types of companies that will sponsor college hackathons. Marketing, API, and recruiting. We'll talk about more why they do it in the next section of the talk, but right now let's just give examples. So marketing could be something like COMCAST. API company could be Twilio, and a recruiting company could be something like Apple. But high school hackathon sponsors are similar, but a little different. So for marketing, it could be the same. It could be Comcast. I don't know if they've ever sponsored a high school hackathon yet, at least, but it would be the similar goals from a high school to college hackathon for them. API company, Twilio, they've definitely sponsored high school hackathons before. But recruiting is a little different because they're not trying to directly recruit high school students as they are with college students. Very few companies are hiring high school interns, although a lot of high schoolers are super competent. Not all high schoolers are. An average high schooler has less experience, and a lot of companies don't want to hire such young people. So for recruiting, we can also look at camps or classes that are marketed towards high school students. For example, the Flatiron School. They were one of HackBCA's sponsors. So yeah, let's move on to the next part of this talk. Sorry. So we know the major 3 types of sponsors, but why do these companies sponsor? What reason do they have to do this? So just the format of this, I'm going to have the type of sponsor in text, and in the top left-hand corner, you can see which type of hackathon it applies to. So first, I'm going to talk about marketing sponsors, and it applies to high school and college hackathons. So why do marketing sponsors attend these hackathons? First thing is branding. They want their logo on T-shirts. They want their logo on on hackers' laptops. They want their logo on the website. They want you to mention their brand. They want their logo on the keynote. They want their logo on banners, etc., etc. They want their branding everywhere, and they want hackers who leave your hackathon to know that they were sponsored, to remember what their logo looked like. And from this is a brand association. This is a big part of it. So you know why hackathons are awesome, because they're centers for innovation. They let people build their future. They let people learn about computer science. They're a great learning platform. Well, these brands want to be associated with that. They want to be associated with this cool new method of teaching students to build the future. For example, if there's a company that attends a hackathon, let's say Dell, for example, if you see their logo at a hackathon, you're gonna associate them with this new form of innovation, this center of innovation, and you're gonna assume they're more of an innovative company just because they were at the hackathon. And this is a big thing. Another thing is awareness. Let's use Walmart as an example here. Although Walmart's not strictly a marketing sponsor, they said in the keynote of the last MHacks, they said, we're a technology company. I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't at the hackathon. And there's a lot of other things. Companies want you to just know what their company does, and that's part of the marketing. So just some examples of this could be Comcast, American Express, Capital One, Dell, Fidelity, Red Bull, FINRA. And these are just companies that want to market. Yeah. And for whatever reason, maybe they want you to buy American Express or enroll in American Express cards when you graduate college, or you want to buy Dell computers, or you want to fly Delta. All of these reasons could be true. Marketing is very broad in this sense. So let's move on to the next type of sponsor, the API sponsor. The API sponsor is also somewhat a marketing sponsor, but it's a subset of it. It's kind of like squares and rectangles. So they apply to high school and college hackathons, and these are probably the sponsors that you've heard of the most. So what they want out of it, they want promotion. They want hackers to know about their API. Let's use SendGrid as an example, because they're a very popular API sponsor, and they do it really well. So there's SendGrid, if you don't know, they have an API for email communication, and there's a lot of competitors in that market, but chances are if you ask any hackathon attendee, they've heard of SendGrid and only SendGrid in this field. You know why? Because they go to so many hackathons and do such a great job at promoting their product, and that's why people have heard of them. Product feedback. So let's use Twilio just because they're in the image. So Twilio will go to a hackathon and they'll see hackers using their product, and they'll see any problems the hacker faces. Maybe something's not clear in the documentation, or maybe there's a bug in the software, or maybe hacker wants to send a certain type of text message that it doesn't support yet. And this is a good way to get feedback from the people who are actually using the product. Relationships. So relationships is actually probably the most important part of any type of sponsor, and especially API sponsors. So their goal out of attending hackathons is to build stronger relationships with attendees at the events. So the more times an attendee sees a brand, the stronger relationship they have with them. So one thing they want to do is attend as many hackathons as possible, just to get as many to get in the eyes and the field of as many students as possible and as many times as possible. But there's another major thing. It's mentorship. So I'm going to use Twilio as an example again. So say you were a hacker at one of these hackathons and you're building your first app. Maybe you're using Flask and you're just having a bug with it and you can't seem to fix it. And you see a Twilio mentor walk by. But although this problem has nothing to do with their product, they offer to help you, and they work for a while to help you fix this problem. And they help you eventually finish your project, and you're super happy about this. And you look at Twilio, you say, wow, these Twilio mentors are awesome. It must be a cool company. So maybe you're not going to use Twilio right now, but maybe in 10, 20 years, you're going to be at a company that needs to implement text messages, and you'll think, oh, I remember Twilio was a really cool company that helped me finish my first app at my first hackathon. Then maybe you'll suggest using Twilio. This is a long-term thing for them, but it's also a super powerful goal they have at these hackathons. I'm going to be talking more about it later, but relationships are key to many companies' sponsorship. And so just some examples of API sponsors: Twilio, SendGrid I mentioned, Mongo, DigitalOcean, Parse, Mashery, and there's many more. And these are the companies that will send usually the best mentors because they need people who know their product in and out and can help with it. So experimenting. Let's talk about hackathon sponsors that are just experimenting. This is applicable to high school and college. So these are just the sponsors that have never sponsored a hackathon before and just want to figure out what are these hackathons. They don't really know exactly what they want to get out of these hackathons, but they know maybe it'll be good, maybe not, maybe it'll be a waste of money, maybe it'll be a waste of time, but they just want to try it out. It's not too resource intensive, so why not? These can come in really any form. It could be Rutgers or the government or like NSA or NASDAQ. Intel's a special case, so I'll just give you the story behind that. For the first Hack BCA, Intel hadn't previously participated in any high school level software development events. And so Intel didn't really know what they were going to get out of it, but they assumed it's a positive impact and it doesn't hurt to sponsor. So they were one of our co-host sponsors for the first Hack BCA. And they were also co-host sponsor for the second Hack BCA, but The difference is they were not an experimenting sponsor the second time anymore. They brought swag, they brought more mentors, they brought more resources because they already proved the first hackathon was just about proving, is this a beneficial thing for us? So these type of sponsors can come in any shape or size. This is not going to be their only goal. They're going to have other goals, but it's mostly just going to be a trial for them. Venture capital. So venture capital sponsors are probably more applicable at the college level, although they can exist at the high school level. So they want to raise awareness. They want hackers at your event to know that they exist, to know their VC firm exists and is looking for companies. So maybe if a hacker, because I'm sure you know, the best hackers and the most entrepreneurial people are usually similar and will usually be found at hackathons. So they know the cream of the crop is at hackathons, and they just want to tell them, look, we exist, and in 10 years or so, if you're starting a company, you should check us out. So they're also looking to source. Maybe there's some hackers at your event who are running an awesome startup, and maybe they'll help try to get them to invest. Whatever, they're just looking to reach out to more hackers. And then one other strategy a lot of VC firms apply. Most specifically, Andreessen Horowitz does this a lot. They'll sponsor hackathons under the name Andreessen Horowitz, but rather than having a table for the VC firm, they're going to have a table for one of their portfolio companies and help their portfolio companies reach out to more developers. And because they realize the benefits of hackathons, but realize it'll be super helpful for their companies. So some examples of these could be like General Catalyst, Techstars, Andreessen Horowitz, or Y Combinator. So let's move on to the next sponsor. Let's talk about charity sponsors. So this is much more applicable in the high school level, although it can exist in the college level again. High school level, it works much better. So these are companies that are just trying to help the world. They realize that hackathons are changing the world, and this movement is huge and showing tons of students what their passion is and how to build the future, and they just want to be part of that. Also, it's good press. Charitable donations never hurt, right? And remember, your hackathon, if you go through your school, your hackathon is a nonprofit, or if you're registered as such. And also, it's pretty much just a write-off for these companies. They don't have to try too hard, and they don't have to justify it too much. They can just write it off. Some examples of this are Just Giving, or Intel, for example, is also a special case again. And I'm sure you've seen this logo a few times in my example section. And the reason for that is sponsors can be multiple types. It's very rare that a sponsor is just one type. A lot of times sponsors combine many of these goals and sections. So anyway, Intel helped sponsor a scholarship we provided at the second Hack BCA. So this part of Intel was pretty charitable, and a lot of these big companies have I'm not actually sure about Intel, but maybe they do, but a lot of these big companies have big budgets for charitable and nonprofit donations. So you can definitely try to tap into that. So let's move on. So college recruiting. This is super important and obviously is only applicable to college students. So awareness. This is the first thing they want. They just want students to know about them. They want hackers at your event, potential hires, to know their company exists. Again, Walmart, to know they're a tech company, to know what they do. Maybe if it's a company you've never heard of, to know just that they're a cool company. They're also looking to find talent. That's why resume drops exist. They're looking to find the best hackers at your event because they know the best hackers or the best programmers or computer scientists are attending hackathons because they love to program and they want to hire people who love to program, and they know they're going to find them at your event. But they're also looking to encourage talent. They're looking to encourage students and show them that they're a cool company, that they're a company that they want to work for. So this is a super important type of sponsor, and it could roughly comprise of 80% of of an individual hackathon's budget. And this is super normal. Most sponsors you come across will be recruiting sponsors. And this is why it's so hard to fundraise for high school hackathons, as you can see, at least right now. Some examples of this are Bloomberg, Google, Apple, NVIDIA, Square, Microsoft, etc. There's so many types of recruiting companies, I can't list them all, and there's so many that haven't even gotten into hackathons yet. Keyword yet. So let's move on to the next one, high school recruiting. So again, high school, not college hackathons. So for these goals, if there's a check mark on the top right-hand screen, this means it's the same between college and high school recruiting sponsors, because there's a lot of similarities. So awareness, that's the same. They want you to know about them. Finding people, that's the same. The best people are at hackathons, or maybe the people who want to learn the most, or it depends what the company wants. Encouraging people, that's the same. They want to show that they're something you want to enroll in or go to or get hired. But the major difference are these companies are not trying to hire anybody. In fact, actually, they're trying to make people enroll. They're trying to recruit people to sign up for their programs. So there are classes and camps they'll offer. Maybe Flatiron School offers a class, and ID Tech offers a camp. Make School offers a general program. General Assembly has classes. There's a lot of these examples, and these are recruiting companies. And whenever there's recruiting, there's a good amount of money that'll be available to you because they make a lot of money per person who signs up. So you need to help them get people to sign up. Also, I think there's a huge potential for universities to participate here. Although there's not a huge precedent for this just yet, because universities tend to be much more bureaucratic than smaller or bigger companies, I think there's a lot of potential. For example, like Rutgers, Michigan, or Minerva. So universities go to college fairs to convince students to attend and show them that they're great. Hackathons are the same thing, but the difference is the best computer scientists or the engineers with the highest potential will be at hackathons. So if let's use Michigan for example. If Michigan wants to find the best engineers, they need to go to a hackathon, and they'll at a hackathon maybe if they want a booth, and they'll tell people why Michigan's a great engineering program, why they should sign up. But it's also a great way for them to find the best talent. One idea I think would be super awesome if a university did, which I don't think has been done just yet, but I think it would be very beneficial, is so as I was talking about before, relationships are super important. If a school like Michigan or Rutgers or other engineering schools sent mentors, so if they sent engineering students from their school, they flew them out just to start helping hackers at the event, help them fix problems, help them with their project, that's going to be super memorable. Just like company mentors, they're going to remember the school. They're going to say, wow, this school taught these mentors a lot. They were able to help me. They were super knowledgeable, but they were also really cool people. And I think I want to be around people like that at this school. And it just looks really good. I would recommend contacting mid-level CS programs at schools. So schools with the top CS programs are going to be, at first at least, before there are many universities, you might have the best luck contacting mid-level CS programs looking to get higher in ranking. So now that we know why companies sponsor hackathons, let's move on to the pitch, the part you've been waiting for. So what are the differences between high school and college hackathons? We talked about a lot, but not in terms of sponsors. So we know attendees of high school hackathons are definitely younger than attendees of college hackathons. But this comes with certain advantages and disadvantages. For example, if you sponsor a hackathon with younger people, it's obvious you're helping the world. You're helping teach young kids about programming. Maybe you're helping expose young people to fields they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. But these younger students are also more impressionable. They've had less time to create preconceived notions or biases against companies or types of events, and they're going to be ready to hear what you want to say. They're also fresher minds. They'll have newer ideas, a different perspective, and they're just ready to go. but you're also going to be teaching the next generation. You're going to be showing the influencers of tomorrow what to do and how to build their dreams. The disadvantage is that they're not really susceptible to recruiting. You can't really hire these people. They're too young. And on average, they have less experience. There are definitely exceptions to that, but the average younger student has less experience than an older student just because they've had less time to learn. And there's also a longer wait until spending power. So until the time, so for example, we'll talk like Fidelity Investments or American Express, as I mentioned earlier. They want students after they graduate from college to buy one of their products or enroll or invest money or enroll. And for young students, there's a much longer time to wait. Although that can be good because there are more events where you can build a relationship with these students. It's also longer term and harder to plan for. Beginners. You're gonna have a much easier time getting beginners at a high school hackathon just because they've had less exposure to hackathons. One advantage of this is it's their first hackathon. Nobody forgets their first hackathon. At least for me, my first hackathon was life-changing, and I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget the people who helped me at my first hackathon. This is crucial because your sponsors, mentors will be super effective. Students are also more excited. Nobody's going to be sleeping through the API demos here. They're super excited to learn, super excited to hear about your company or your product or whatever. They also have more to learn. They're starting from a starter. So here an example would be, which do you think would be more memorable for students to learn? Would they want to learn a new sorting algorithm or how to make their first website? Obviously, their first website. Obviously, there's exceptions, but the first time someone builds a website or an iPhone app, that's super important and super memorable. And companies will have a chance to help people get started. Also, there's no stickers. This is kind of important and really cool. At HackBCA, almost all the laptops had no stickers because they've never been to a hackathon or a similar event before. High school students don't have exposure to companies handing out swag. I remember at my first hackathon as a high schooler, I was so excited to get any sticker I could from these companies or t-shirts even. That was crazy to me. I've never even met like a representative of Google or a representative of one of these sponsors, and neither have most hackathon attendees in high school hackathons. That's why they're going to be super happy to grab your stickers, even if, for example, I'll give an example. For example, if a sponsor has maybe not too great of a hackathon shirt, if it's like not a great hackathon shirt, college hackathons attendees are not really going to be as keen to wear it, but high school hackathon attendees will be super excited to wear it and will wear it because they haven't seen anything better, but they also haven't seen it so much. It's still a novelty to them. On the flip side, they have less experience, as I was saying, and it's just on average they have less experience and it's harder to hire them and they're not as great to recruit. So there's actually a lot of cases where high school hackers could actually be better than college hackers. A disproportionate number of high school hackers actually win collegiate hackathons, and that's crazy. And it's a large part due to how self-selecting of an audience it is. But this has some advantages. So you can tell sponsors they're talking to influencers of tomorrow. They're talking to the next generation of leaders because almost all of the people who are motivated enough to learn to code and get really good at it already in high school, they're going to be super smart and they're going to be an influencer of tomorrow and they're going to be at your hackathon. There's also more time to build these relationships that I'm talking about. So if you're starting earlier, they're going to be attending more hackathons throughout their life because they just have more time to it. So they're going to be talking to companies more. And if your companies, if you see a company at every single hackathon you go to, and you're going for 1 year versus 6 years, there's a big difference. So let's move on and let's talk about the unique value proposition. In other words, what can you pitch that collegiate hackathons cannot pitch? Well, you can pitch that most of your attendees are attending their first hackathon, and the first hackathon is the most memorable. Students are literally starting from a blank slate, and nobody forgets their first event, and nobody forgets the people who helped them at their first event. You can pitch that you have an easier time getting beginners at your event, and these are beginners who are super excited to learn and will actually listen to the API demos. They're really excited to build their first application, and it's just going to be a super memorable experience for them. You can also pitch that you're doing, You can also pitch that sponsors are doing good by helping your event. Your event is showing high school students what they can do, giving them the power to create and showing them that they can actually build their dreams and getting them started. You're showing them new careers and helping them find their passion. College students, a lot of them have already chosen what they want to study, and many of them have decided to go to a college because of what they want to study. A lot of high schoolers are still trying to decide what they want to study, and hackathons are a great way to learn more about computer science and if people like it. Diversity. This is a big one. So diversity is a huge problem in the technology field right now, and many companies are working hard to fix it. And in my opinion, diversity issues can be best solved at a young age, especially for the next generation. We'll use gender diversity as an example because that's a big problem right now. A lot of minorities, females, get turned off to the idea and just feel like computer science is a male-dominated field, which it kind of is right now. But if you show people that anyone can attend these hackathons and anyone can hack at a young age, it's going to help break these stereotypes. And also reach out to brands for high schoolers. There's a lot of brands, as I said again, Fidelity or American Express. They're trying to market towards college students. There's a lot of brands that are marketing towards high school students. Types of calculators, for example. There's a lot of them, and they're going to be interested. So, what do you say to them? How do you actually pitch this? So it really depends on the company. Again, not all companies are looking for the same thing, and not all companies are trying to accomplish the same thing in the same way. Remember to be unique. You're not a college hackathon. You can have to say the same thing. Remember to just try to stand out because there's not many high school hackathons now, and that's a good way to get people interested and excited. I'm just going to give you a quote from our HackBCA 2 sponsorship prospectus that we sent out to potential sponsors. It says, "Be there to help high school students overcome challenges at their first hackathon. When that student later starts new projects, convinces his or her friends to code, looks for a job, or retells the story of his or her first hackathon, there's one company that will stand out. One never forgets their first hackathon experience, and nobody forgets the help they received and the people they met at their first hackathon." This is super important, as I was saying before. Any sponsor that helps students overcome their problems at their first hackathon and helps them build their first website or app or program in general, that's going to be super memorable, and you should emphasize that. Just emphasize that sponsors are talking to the influencers of tomorrow. All of the leaders of tomorrow are going to be at hackathons. Again, that's a little bit of a hyperbole, but the people at your hackathon will be influencers of tomorrow, and they should have a chance to interact with these sponsors. So let's move on to the final part of this talk, how to secure sponsors. So the first step, get contacts. Just get who you should contact. A good way to do this is talk to your school, and it's a great idea to ask your school if they're working with any companies they think would be interested, and ask them for intros. Because not only does this get you more companies to talk to, but this gives your school stake in your event. They're not going to want to cancel your event randomly if you're talking to companies they work with. And most of all, they're going to help you succeed in any way they can if they have stake in the event. And it's also going to get them excited about the event. Next, you're going to want to determine what types of sponsors you want and what types of goals you're going to try to accommodate for. make your prospectus and tailor it to the types of companies. This is our HackBCA 2 sponsorship prospectus, one of the pages. If you're actually interested, you can check it out at hackbca.com/sponsors. Although that might change depending on when you're watching this, but don't be afraid to name each column by the type of sponsor that it's tailored for. Such as here, you can see API, marketing, recruiting, partners like a combination, and co-host is our top sponsor. And companies will pay for exclusivity here. This will be like 2 sponsors with their branding everywhere. And a lot of these companies will want to combine types of sponsorship, but make it clear for companies that aren't trying to do that. And it makes it easier for you too. Then just go through, make a spreadsheet, and list every single relevant company. Just go down, list hundreds and hundreds of companies that you think you should contact, and find their email addresses. And then the next step, start emailing. Just send out tons of emails. Let's talk about how to do that. So I would create an email template, create a subject, like what you're going to say. Of course, these emails should be personalized to different companies, but it never hurts to have a few things that are copied and pasted, because it just makes your life easier and makes it so you can make it higher quality and make all your emails on brand. So how should you make this? I would start out introducing yourself. Don't be afraid to pull the high school card. It makes you more interesting, even though it might make your hackathon seem less legitimate because the high schooler is running it. It makes it so much cooler and more unique, and it'll get people interested. So I started out most of my emails with, "Hi, my name is Jared Zoneraich, and I'm a junior at the Bergen County Academy's high school. Feel free to do something like that." Then move on to talking about how big is your event. Just tell them what the scale is and what the logistics are, like where it is, because this is what they're interested in. Because this is going to be a checkpoint they need to fulfill. If they're going to sponsor you, they have to logistically be able to sponsor you. Then here's the hook. Tell them why they should sponsor, why your hackathon is legitimate, and give it legitimacy. And whether it's press, big sponsors, maybe judges are a great way to add legitimacy, or a link to your website even. This is super important to just show them that this is an awesome event they should be a part of, and they don't want to miss out on. Then move on to talking about why this benefits them, what they should get out of it. Maybe talk about how they can help the influencers of tomorrow learn to code, or help them discover their passions. Move on to talking about your mission. Why are you running this hackathon? You should pretty much label this out, put this here. It makes the email much more genuine, and it makes your hackathon just seem better. Maybe your mission doesn't have to be the same as other hackathons. Maybe you want to get the best high school hackers in a room. Or maybe for HackBCA, we wanted to show people that they had the power to build the future, build their future even. And then end the email with a call to action. End the email saying something like, let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to call me at this number, or maybe, are you free on Friday to talk about this, or something like that. Just a call to action, something to tell them what to do. But also, if they don't respond, feel free to bug them. Feel free to email them every week or even less, and just say, "Hey, I'm just following up on my email. Wondering if you have any questions about this. Feel free to let me know," or something like, "I know you're super busy. Really would appreciate hearing what your thoughts on this are." Just never feel free to bug them too much. They're going to say no if they don't want to sponsor it. But chances are it just got lost in their inbox, or they're really bad with email, or they're just procrastinating on it. A lot of times they'll be thankful if you bug them. So yeah, don't be afraid to email people. Email as many people. Don't be afraid for cold emails. The worst that can happen is someone's going to say no. And the best that can happen is they're going to be a sponsor for you and give you money. So don't be afraid to email people, and just email as many times as possible. One example of this is for HackBCA, one of our main sponsors. We actually just emailed the CEO of the company, and it went down the chain, and eventually they became one of our major sponsors. So don't be afraid with who you're emailing, and just send it out. Don't be just go for it. So remember, college hackathons started small. They started with 50, 60 people, but they've gotten much bigger now. And it's really only a matter of time before high school hackathons grow to this. High school hackathons look like college hackathons looked like a few years ago, and they're growing at such a rapid pace, they might even become bigger than collegiate hackathons. So thank you for listening, and I wish you the best luck with your hackathon. If you have any questions about this, feel free to contact me at imjaredz.com, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I'm happy to help you with anything for your high school hackathon.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jared. We have a couple of questions from people who have tuned in. So do you mind sticking out and answering those?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So our first question comes from Bogdan. He says, I was wondering what the dropout ratio of varsity teams that didn't attend was for HackBCA. Do you think there's a difference between high school and college?
Yeah. So on people, was the question for people who signed up to attend the hackathon, how many actually showed up?
Yeah, he was asking what the dropout ratio of people who say they're going to come but don't actually show up is for high school versus college.
I think it's going to be pretty similar between the two hackathons, but at college hackathons specifically, people can just go back to their dorms and don't have to stay the night. But high school students don't really have dorms and can just go back to their houses. They're not going to go back to their houses. They're going to stay at the event overnight. For HackBCA, we had about a 60 to 70% attrition rate. So that means 60 to 70% of people actually attended the hackathon that signed up. But it's pretty a good assumption to assume that most people who upload a signed waiver to your event will actually show up to your event, because that's a lot of work to upload a waiver. And we had about, I think 80% of people who signed the waiver show up to our event. Although that's not an exact statistic, but something like that.
Awesome. So our next question, this one comes from Joshua, and he says, what's the best way to get access to lots of information about recruiters? Also, how do I ask advice from current hackathon organizers? So I think he's asking, what's the best way to find contact information for people who could potentially sponsor your event, as well as is there a good way to get advice from existing hackathon organizers like yourself?
Yeah. So 2 ways for this. Let me just share my screen again. Hold on. So I would suggest just if you want to find someone's email address, if you have a company that you want to contact, just go on LinkedIn, find a recruiter at the company, maybe not a recruiter, but depending on the type of sponsor, find someone who works in the relevant department and just find their name. And then just open up a website I like to use called themailtester.com. And you could just try out their email. I'll try out jared@mlh.io and we'll check it. A lot of domains won't work. They'll say it won't let you, but a lot will. And if it doesn't, I just email every permutation, Jared Z, Jared Zoneraich, J Zoneraich. Just try out a lot of stuff. And as for the other part of the question, how to get advice from organizers, I would definitely just recommend just sending them Facebook messages. Almost all hackathon organizers are going to be more than happy to help you with your hackathon, especially if it's a high school hackathon. Feel free to message me. I can connect you, or email the MLH team. They'd be happy to help you. You can contact them at hi@mlh.io. And I'm sure everybody's going to be willing to help you. So feel free to reach out, post on Facebook or message or whatever.
Awesome. This next question comes from Liam. He said, you talk a lot about branding differently from college hackathons by taking advantage of what beginners have over experienced college students. How do you think it's possible to run a hackathon focused on bringing experienced high school hackers together?
That's a good question. I think it would be pretty more similar to college hackathons, but it's totally possible. It's definitely harder to find more experienced high school hackers, especially to fill an event. They definitely exist, but they'll have to come from all over. And it would work. I still don't think recruiting would work too well there, just because a lot of companies have preconceived biases of hiring young people, and they don't really want to hire people under 18. I've had a lot of trouble working for places. So I wouldn't, recruiting still I would stay away from, but it's definitely possible and it would be really cool.
Cool. So this next question comes from Surenda. The question is, how do you maintain a good male to female ratio and help promote racial diversity at hackathons?
This is a good question for college and high school hackathons. I can tell you what we did at HackBCA. I forgot our exact numbers. I think we had about 37% female to male ratio at HackBCA 2. But what we did was we just first thing first, you just have to reach out to groups where a lot of female hackers participate in, or female scientists, or whatever. Some like SWE is a good example on the high school level, or stuff like that, girls who code, all that. But another thing we did was with our registration system, we reserved more tickets for, we had a first come first serve registration system for HackBCA 2. So, but we separated it into different buckets. For example, this was not just for gender, this was also for like experience level, to make sure we had enough new hackers and not too many experienced hackers, and to also make sure we had enough diversity at the event. And this is so what we did was we reserved tickets for example, for females, we reserved a certain amount of tickets just to account for the fact that there's a less percentage of female of girls who will be interested in hacking will be in the groups like hackathon hackers that you're going to traditionally go to. So this tries to account for that problem. And it worked well for us.
Awesome. So this looks like it's our last question here. It's from Jay. He says, do you think that high school hackathons still hold the traditional advantage over college hackathons? Should we do anything new to attract sponsor attention beyond what we're already doing?
So I don't think they hold a specific advantage. I think there are some things that are better about high school hackathons and some things that are better about collegiate hackathons. But there's always benefits of innovating for your hackathon. You should always be looking to how to make your hackathon better. But I think as it is, one thing that's important is just making high school hackathons more of a thing, make more of them. But to answer the question, nothing specifically, although I think contacting universities is a huge opportunity, because college hackathons are replacing career fairs. Why can't high school hackathons replace college fairs?
Awesome. With that last question, Jared, where can people find you on Twitter or the internet or wherever on the internet webs if they want to follow up with you afterwards?
You can find me at I'm Jared Z on Twitter, or if you want to contact me, just send me a message on Facebook, or email me at imjaredz.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jared. For everybody who may have had questions that we didn't have time to answer, we'll do our best to answer those after this is done, and maybe we'll send out some information on that. We also have a recording of the entire presentation, so you'll be able to find that online too and refer back to it. Thanks again, Jared. Really appreciate it. Have a good night, everybody.